Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another 425 show. Happy time zone. So, if you've been following us on Twitter or LinkedIn, you know that we're in the middle of, we call it a swarm. Think of it like a campaign or a set of activities. We're in the middle of one focusing on Entra Permissions Management. So, over the next few months, we have a ton of activities planned. And I want to make sure that we give ourselves some time here to make sure that you know where to go. So, first things first, we've got a blog post. Now, this blog post was authored by our VP, Sue Bone. If you bookmark this and come back to it, you'll be able to click on podcasts after they launch. Right now, they are sort of placeholder URLs. So, for instance, even this video will be updated with the YouTube video once everything has been complete later today. And you'll be able to join us throughout the course of the next couple of months here. So I think that's the cool reality. This is a multiple month activity based effort, and we're doing quite a bit. Now, one of the interesting things I want to highlight, we have an NDA community, right? So we call it the EPM advisors community, and EPM is just short for Entra Permissions Management. Now, if you join here, there are weekly calls with the product team. So you can really be influential in shaping the product. You can hear about roadmap, right? And now it's all NDA, so you couldn't get onto social media and talk about it, but you get access to private previews, you get access to influence the product over the course of its life cycle. So definitely take a look at that. Now, if that seems a little bit cumbersome, you can always join us on Discord too. We've got an actual channel now for Enter Permissions Management. We also have a bunch of other channels as well. And if you aren't joining us there, you should. A lot of activity happens there throughout the course of each day. We even have, I like to call it kind of tech support. So if you get stuck with something, you can go to one of our channels and you can ask folks for help. So that's a cool reality, very community driven on that front. So today we are going to give that overview of Entra Permissions Management, and I'm joined by two of my awesome colleagues. So they are backstage without the green room. We don't have a green room on this show, but they're backstage. I'm going to bring them out now. So we are joined by Nick Wryter and Guru. Hey guys, how's it going?
How's it going, Shannon? So great to be here.
Yeah, I think it's both of your first times on the 425 show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, echoing Nick, it's so great to be here,
Nice.
Shannon. Thanks.
Guru is so excited. He's wearing his 425 show shirt. We had talked about wearing it at the same time. I wore mine last week and it's in the dirty clothes hamper. So I left Guru hanging, but he is so enthusiastic. Look at it. We love it. We love the enthusiasm, right?
I ironed it last night. I had it out, and I expected you to wear it.
You can publicly give me a ton of a ton of crap, right? You'll have to maybe retweet this later and say Shannon forgot her 425 shirt. So, well, cool. Well, so thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. I thought it might make sense for both of you to talk about your role at Microsoft and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
I guess I could go first. At Microsoft, I get to be part of the product group. So being the product group is really, really large. And as a product manager, one of my main roles is to help with the launching of new services, right? So that's what I get to do. I get to, try out all the new and cool new services that Microsoft is going to be releasing from the identity and network access group. And I get to, play with those, fun toys. And, Entra Permissions Management is one of our new products as part of the Entra product of families. And I get to, participate in that. That's what I do at Microsoft.
Very cool. And Guru?
Yeah, and so my name is Guru. I'm also a part of the product team in Microsoft, and a part of the group of people who gets to play with the nice fun toys that Microsoft has to offer. But even before that, I was a developer actually working on our cloud infrastructure entitlements management product known as Entra Permissions Management today. And so we're going to be talking about that, and I can't wait to get to know you all and expand your knowledge in Kim, so that we can all like be rest assured that we know what we're talking about when we're talking about Kim. So I appreciate Shannon inviting me to be on the show, and yeah,
Of
let's
course.
do it.
And Guru is going to be involved in a couple of the, well, we call them community calls, but it's at NDA advisors community. So I'll show that one more time. So if you're interested in seeing some of the behind the scenes work, Guru, I think we've got you for both of the Wednesdays that we have planned for November, right? So if you are interested in seeing some more of what Guru will be showing, join the EPM advisors community and you'll be able to kind of watch what he's got planned over the course of the next couple of weeks here. So when it comes to Entra Permissions Management, I all of a sudden started seeing a brand new acronym, and at least it was brand new to me, right? In fact, I thought the C was a soft C, so I kept saying it as SIM, and then I kept hearing Kim, and I got so confused. And so I remember when I realized that I was just saying it wrong and that we were talking about the same thing, it was kind of like oh, okay. So it all sort of solidified in my mind. For the folks who might be unfamiliar, would you want to walk through what Kim stands for?
Well, I would like to just say Kim just stands for Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management. But Guru is part of the developers or the engineers that actually built the product. So I'll let him answer that one because I think that's a fun story he can tell there.
No, absolutely. And so before I joined Microsoft, I was a part of CloudNots, which was part of which was the company that really brought this category to light. Gartner used us as an example before creating the category. And when the category was first created, people just pronounced it in a variety of ways. I've seen it pronounced in so many different ways, with the hard C, with the soft C, including the IE, pronouncing it as Keem instead of Kim. In fact, I didn't really know how it was pronounced until I joined Microsoft and there was a roundtable discussion happening in the conference room. I wasn't there, but there were messages being exchanged back and forth, and I was just reading the message trail. And then finally, somebody, I think it was Ravi, the engineering manager, he finally said that, okay, it's pronounced Kim as in Kim. So that's when that's when it was truly put to bed how it's really pronounced. But I think this sheds light on something that's more important, which is that we're still really, really new,
Right.
and people are still really, really curious about what this is, and not only how to pronounce it, but what it entails, and what are we trying to serve the identity and also the security community with when we're introducing this. And so, I mean, it just it brings to light that this is like a really new opportunity for everybody. And we're trying to take advantage of this with Shannon's Swarm as much as we possibly can, right, Shannon?
Well, Guru, I think is it fair to say that because CloudNox Security in the past was the creator of the new Kim category, which is the Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management, then we bless it and deem it Kim because we are the leaders in that area. And after Microsoft's acquisition, which we could talk to the team about, we could talk to on the show about the acquisition too. We could just call it Kim, right? So Shannon, I think we're going to name it Kim, and it's blessed off calling it Kim.
There we go. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, so I don't know. I have the same problem with musical artists, right? So if you don't hear the way the musical artist pronounces their name, oftentimes in the back of your head, you'll just give it a name, and then you'll join a community or you'll hear somebody talk about it, and you're like, oh, that's how you pronounce it. So I had a lot of aha moments, and then being a part of the V team now, planning some of these efforts, it's now just it's top of mind. It's not something I have to worry about. But originally, I was like, "What is this Kim product, and what's going on with it?" So now I think folks who are tuning in, they might be interested to understand a little bit more about what Entra Permissions Management is and the capabilities. So I don't know if you want to divide and conquer on that one. I know both of you are familiar with the product, and both of you might be able to provide some interesting insight into, kind of what you work on.
Nick,
Sure. Yeah. I think we can definitely talk about the product, right? So, ideally, when everybody wonders what Kim is, obviously now that we know what that acronym means, right? So what does Kim really do? Well, Kim really leverages cloud infrastructure and platform service. For short, we call it CIPS, which is the public APIs to obtain identity configurations, the entitlements, permissions, and operational details to facilitate like an analysis along with native capabilities um, of that cloud service provider. So an example would be if you're thinking, okay, within Azure, right? If you're looking at, okay, how can Azure determine those identity configurations, those entitlements and permissions that are tied to a specific identity, and you're wondering what actions and tasks based upon the operational details that go along with that identity. Well, that's what the Kim market or that Kim category helps you actually get access to.
Okay.
At least that's one of the ways I can put it, right? And there are ways that Kim can help organizations, and it's based on three things, right? It's based upon the risks, the analytics that Kim brings, and then the enforcement point, which adds to any governance story that goes on. Those are the main things I share there. Maybe
Okay.
Guru, you have some more to add to that?
Yeah, and I mean, and whatever Nick said, this is all to help organizations follow the principle of least privilege,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is that identity should only have the permissions to perform the activities that they do on a daily basis, nothing more and nothing less, right? And this sounds very simple in layman terms, but when you're dealing with cloud infrastructure that expands through multiple clouds, through multiple AWS accounts, GCP projects, Azure subscriptions, it becomes a nightmare to deal with. And I like people in IT, people who are working in the identity space have tried to run scripts, download logs, and write their own programmatic interfaces to deal with this problem for several years now, and it just doesn't scale, and it's quite frankly, it's a waste of an organization's time when they can be doing much more productive things. And so what we bring that visibility to organizations that, hey, these identities have access to X, Y, and Z. They should only be having access to X based on what they've actually done over the past 90 days. That's the metric that we use. And then how do you go ahead and fix that, and then do continuous evaluation of that so that the chain is never broken. You're always constantly monitoring what's going on in your cloud infrastructure, because it's not cloud infrastructure. When you fix it, it's not just a one-time thing. It's continuous, and so we try to bring that to the forefront with Entra Permissions Management.
Yeah,
and I mean, I know when I used to work with customers, and even when I would be a consultant working for customers, I would always ask for more permissions because I didn't quite know where I was going to land, right? I think now that permissions are more so fine-tuned and everything, because I mean, if you think about cloud and the evolution of cloud, there were times where you'd get access to, say, build a virtual machine, but you couldn't control storage. And so to mitigate that, when I was a consultant, and this is shame on me, and this is many, many moons ago, I would ask for more permissions, right? And I would be given the permissions. Oh, let me lost Nick for a second. There we go. We lost you for a second, Nick. It's gremlins in the machine, right? You fed your machine after midnight, right? But I think it stands true that folks didn't really know what they needed, and they would always ask for more. And that's, or they would ask for a managed identity that had highly privileged access, and it would be, for the most part, just sitting there, kind of dormant, or, kind of like a something that got spun up one time and used one time, but it's still there and it never got decommed. So this gives you a lot more visibility. I like seeing that aspect quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you're saying with the experience that you actually have as a developer, right, Shannon? And that leads me to me wanting to talk about a little bit about the critical Kim capabilities. So if you were wondering, like, overall, what are some of those capabilities? I think Guru alluded to the visibility aspect, right, which is a powerful gateway for any organization to, for example, jump into this. And so when we think about, okay, what is the Kim capability? Like, why is Shannon and Guru and Nick talking about this? Well, there are 5 main categories to the capabilities that Kim actually brings to any organization. You can get the value of that today, right? And those are number one, entitlement discoveries, threat assessments, privilege right sizing, automated remediation, and then lastly, the monitoring and governance capability, as Guru alluded to, the enforcing the policy of least privilege. So when you think about, for example, that entitlement discovery, well, that's that visibility, right? We get that discovery of like identities and associated access entitlements across your IaaS and PaaS resources. I mean, that is a big, 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 big and powerful capability that anybody can use today. And then
Very cool.
we talk about that threat assessment point of view, right? That's tied to like that critical risk indicator and access correlation. So when you get visualizations and heat maps as to what your threat landscape looks like when it comes from an identity perspective, and being able to calculate an effective access permission across your different cloud platforms, that is that threat assessment kind of add that we're adding to it. Gartner likes to say Kim is growing, right? And Kim is touching a lot of it's evolving, right? It's touching all the security products and security suite things, right? And we like to say with Kim, when it comes to privilege right sizing, there's not much you can do with that, right? So privilege right sizing is another very, very critical capability. And Guru, maybe you can share with us a little bit about, how we coined the term, there's not much we can do. You can do whenever an identity is compromised, when you have right size permissions to them.
Right. And so the idea is that, let's say we're taking Shannon as an example, right? And Shannon, she's an identity, and she just asked for permissions to access, all of these resources, which she only really needed once. And then those permissions, they stayed dormant for a long period of time, correct? So what happens then when those permissions stay dormant is you're giving hackers another avenue to get into Shannon's identity and basically access resources that Shannon really only used once, or if at all, right? And let's say that Shannon asked for a role such as owner role for an Azure subscription, where she when in actuality she only needed a small segment of that owner role in order to perform the activity that you wanted to perform on that particular day. But then the IT admin forgets to revoke the owner role. Then when a hacker comes in and hacks into Shannon's account, again, this goes back to the saying that hackers don't hack, they log in.
Right, it's true.
Right. And so once they log in and get access to Shannon's account, you want to make sure that their attack surface little as possible, right? And this is mitigation. This is prevention of collateral damage that it could cause, right? And when you're in the cloud, you can be connected to multiple subscriptions, multiple AWS accounts, right? And the possibilities are endless. And the attack surface has just gotten bigger and bigger. And so this is why identity management and cloud infrastructure entitlement management with regards to an identity's permissions has become so critical to control, because once you control that and the attack surface, there's really not much a hacker can do once they get into an identity's account. So we're trying to spread that awareness. And just going back to Shannon's example one more time, think about Shannon's example multiplied by 1,000 across 3 different clouds.
Right.
And so if an organization comes back and says that we don't have this problem, frankly, I don't believe them, because it's a very common problem that Shannon stated. And,
I was gonna say we've got some podcasts coming, and one of the common themes, and I've already recorded it. It will release, I believe, it's next week it'll release, but the GBBs we're talking about, that there are customers who do the kind of trial licensing, and there's never a moment where they don't find something. And I think it's true to form, because on premises, we had a finite amount of resources, right? Finite amount of compute, storage, networking. In the cloud, it's almost infinite, right? It's certainly more infinite than on premises. And so you've got these middleware teams that have access, and they can go spin up things on demand, and cloud sprawl is real. And it's not just in Azure, right? Even though we all hang out in Azure pretty readily, it's any cloud really, because of the fact that you've got this ability to spin things up on demand based upon the permissions that you have. And inventory is hard, identity management is hard. So this is an interesting product to spread over the top.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So Nick, how did EPM come underneath Entra?
Oh, wow. Yeah. What a great, okay. So I think this is a question that we get a lot of,
I'm
right? Like
sure.
I remember at RSA earlier this year, while we were there, and Entra had this launch, right? We had just launched Microsoft Entra. Basically, it was the coming out party for the new name for all identity overall. So the whole identity product suite got a new name, and it was named Microsoft Entra. So Microsoft Entra now has Azure Active Directory, it has Entra Permissions Management, it has identity governance, workload identities, all as part of that product family. So how do we come
Okay.
how do we come to this place? Well, as I mentioned, in July of 2021, Cloud Knox Security got acquired by Microsoft. And when we acquired Cloud Knox, what happened was we were able to integrate Entra Permissions Management into our identity product suite, and that's where EPM became part of that family, because that's how we onboarded Cloud Knox Security, because of the problem that we're trying to solve with identities within the cloud, right? So we're trying to add to that identity and access management strategy to boost and actually posture secured environments, looking at identities, especially on the IaaS front and infrastructure side. So that's
Makes
how it came.
sense.
That's how it was birthed.
Yeah, and I always think it's funny that people hear Entra and they just think it's just Entra Permissions Management, and it's like, no, we rebranded everything. Like Azure Active Directory is still our hero service, right? But there's other avenues, and that just shows where we think identity and access management are going in the future. It's not just traditional user accounts, managed identities, service principals. There's Entra Verified ID. There's Entra Permissions Management, and I suspect there will be more at some point. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting space to be in.
Yeah, and I think it just shows the direction that Microsoft is going with security. Like we're not just Azure, right? Or we're not just Azure AD.
Right.
We're expanding to the cloud now, and soon we'll be expanding to SaaS. And so like it's just opening the doors to do like many more like security applications in the future, I think.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, what are some of the reasons customers may choose to adopt EPM within their environment? I think this is a pretty interesting question,
Mm-hmm.
just because I'm sure you probably get this type of question or this line of questioning quite a bit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I could start there by just saying, unmanaged permissions are expanding your attack surface. So any customer out there who has permissions, because we know those permissions exist today, we know that your attack surface has been expanded by this, right? And then basically three ways we know that that's a possibility. And permissions management, it's not something a lot of our customers are doing today, right? It's because number one, there's lack of comprehensive visibility into identities, permissions, and resources. We know that. We also know that the increased complexity of IAM and security teams to manage permissions across multi-cloud environments is a very hard thing to do. Like being able to do that, it's complex. Not
Right.
everyone is skilled in the different clouds. And then lastly, just the increased risk of breach from accidental or malicious permissions and misuse by humans and non-humans. I mean, that in itself is a very, very hard thing to do.
Right.
And maybe this is where I'll like to go into the permissions gap. Guru, maybe you can add to why even that permissions gap is affecting so many environments today as part of the problem, as to why we're trying to bring EPM to the whole world.
Yeah, sure, Nick. So a cloud permissions gap, as Nick was alluding to just there, it's the delta between your unused activity and your used activity. So basically, what we do with EPM is that we take what your entitlement data is, and basically, what are your entitlements? Well, it's what you're entitled to. It's your permissions, right, of your identity, and we analyze that along with your activity, based on the activity logs that come from your various clouds, right? And so once we analyze both of those things and bring it to the forefront, we show you, hey, these are the activities that you have access to that you are not using, and we have the activity that you've actually used. And so like this gap is very big across all organizations, and you can see that as identities start to come to the surface. At first, I want to talk about like two scenarios here, right? Human identities and non-human identities. So for human identities, we're seeing that they're usually provisioned correctly at the start, based on their job descriptions and what they need to do on a daily basis. And then people or engineers like Shannon come and ask for extra permissions, right? And those extra permissions become stale over time. Again, we keep coming back to the same story because
But
really,
it's so true. It's so true, right?
right?
I need
So
more. I need more.
Just give me
Yeah,
all of the access.
just give you all the access, right? And so I can work on whatever I need to work on. And then I'll forget to tell you about like revoking it, because humans are very forgetful in
Right.
nature. So that's the human identity story. And then for the non-human identity story, as a developer, I just want my script to work.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So I'm going to just feed it all the permissions that I can possibly feed it in order to, just get it to work. And once it works, like I don't care how I did it, right? It's working, it's operational, and it's helping the organization scale. And that's what cloud has brought to, enterprise. Because of cloud, they're able to scale at a level where on-prem was not able to do so, right? We're able to bring up and bring down VMs at a whim, right? We're able to like do infrastructure as code, right? But with that comes a lot of risk, right? And you need to make sure that infrastructure itself, they have the right permissions to do the right things. Because if a hacker logs in to that VM and that VM has administrator access, then you're in big trouble. And so you're just creating a bigger attack surface for your hackers by not looking after permission. So that's the human and non-human identity story. Overall, we've seen like cloud permissions gap like increase for both humans and non-human identities.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
that is what EPM brings to the forefront. And we help you remediate that and consistently monitor that over time as your cloud footprint increases.
Yeah. And just to add, just a last thing, I think we did some research and we came up with, I think, in 2025, I think it's been determined that a lot of admin work is going to be replaced by workload identities. And so automation is going to basically grow to like almost 1 billion of users within the cloud. And so when you think about that and you think about, okay, I can give all these roles to a specific automated, non-human identity to work on behalf of humans. If you don't control or have a management plan for the permissions that those roles are getting, well, guess what? You don't know what's happening. And to Guru's point, when a threat actor logs in with a credential and they actually get access to that automation or that workload identity, well, guess what they can do? Now they can be malicious and do certain things on behalf of a human when that non-human identity is supposed to help, the IT security environment to basically with automation to help their environment. But that, it increased the risk of breach in like a split second, right?
Yeah. And I think some of the more recent breaches are a direct result of those types of accounts being hacked, not your everyday user. Just because your user can respond to an MFA challenge, like this morning, my MSA was somebody tried to log in my MSA account. Are you trying to log in? And I'm like, I'm eating breakfast. Like, no, like deny. But that's the cool thing, right? Like as a user, you can usually do things like that, especially if you have it deployed in your environment. So the MFA challenges are huge. But these types of accounts that cannot respond to an MFA challenge, they get trickier to maintain and manage. So this is one of the ways. And then, we've got workload identities as I think it's a specific SKU, or at least it's talked about as a specific SKU in our world now. And that's another way to take a look at what your workload identities are doing, right? You can apply conditional access policies. So I don't know, it's an ever evolving world and it makes it difficult. If you're thinking about it, why is it so hard to achieve the principle of least privilege in the cloud? And I have like my own thoughts. I think a lot of it is human beings are vast and it's hard. And if we could have solved for human nature, I think all of us would have found ourselves in a cloud back when they were being built or at least first launched. So it wouldn't be as vast or as interesting as Azure is or GCP or AWS. What it would have been like, web roles, worker roles, networking and storage, and we would have been happy, right? But because human nature is the way that it is, we now have a lot of different applications, a lot of different workloads, a lot of different things you can do with the cloud that you couldn't ever think about doing, at least at scale on premises. So that's my take of it. But I wanted to get both of your takes, right? Why is it so hard to achieve that principle of least privilege?
I can take this first, Nick. And so, like as you were alluding to, Shannon, like it's efficiency. Like be going to the cloud. Why are enterprises like switching from their on-prem to cloud at a higher rate than we've ever seen before? It's because they've seen the amount of efficiency that we can get done in the cloud, and I can bring up an application just like this with the snap of my fingers, and it's up and running, and it's efficient, and like I don't need to hire a staff to manage it. The cloud manages it themselves, and so that is the reason why cloud infrastructure has expanded over the last decade or so. It's really all about efficiency, and human beings have always wanted to be efficient since the beginning of time. If it wasn't for human nature, we would be out of business.
It's true.
And so that's really the crux of it. But what we really want to do with EPM is that we don't want to sacrifice efficiency. Sure. Like our goal is to maintain the same or close to same value, like levels of efficiency, while keeping security in mind, right? And that comes through automation. For developers like Shannon, like what do they need to complete this job that they need to do, and how can I give them permission so that they only have that permission for a specific amount of time, and then it's revoked, right? That's really what we want to bring to the forefront. We want to say, hey, like, IAM engineers, continue to be efficient, continue to give your developers the freedom to have these permissions, but you have your own operationalization on the side that makes that possible, and keeping security in mind through all of that, so that you can maintain peace of mind that you're secure, and also you are maintaining the same level of efficiency of your developers. It's going to take some time to get to that point, but I feel that EPM is definitely like going in the right direction in terms of that. Nick, you want to add on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the main points, right, Guru? I think you talked about all of the points why we're thinking how to enforce the principle of least privilege, right? But lastly, one thing I just want to add to what Guru is saying is, when you look at Entra Permissions Management, it's not a replacement for your PIM solution today. It's not a replacement for your IGA solution. It's not a replacement for your identity and access management strategy.
Right.
But it's a complement to all those things. So if you have PIM, which actually gives you an ability to create eligible roles so that your users can elevate themselves to get the right roles just in time, that's great. That's the starting place. KIM comes into play by saying, okay, I'm going to give you visibility into that eligible role and tell you exactly what permissions were used when that user actually elevated themselves to that privileged role. And then we help you right size it so that you just don't give them like a built-in role. You give them a custom specific role that has those special permissions in there. So when they do elevate themselves using PIM, they can have that just enough permissions to do their jobs for just that time. So we basically, the idea is just-in-time access, right? Or just-in-time roles with just enough permissions coming together, and then your users are secure doing what you want them to do. And that is an example of enforcing that least privilege that I think Guru was alluding to. Now, let's talk about IGA. When you think IGA, identity governance, maybe you might have some entitlement management, some access reviews. Well, think about it like this. We're going to, number one, give you that visibility into those permissions of those roles and all those entitlements that users have access to, whether it's an access package, whatever that governance structure is. And then we give you that just enough permissions because we study over time what those users are doing. And then you basically bring those two together. And then now you have a strong and robust governance strategy within your environment. That's what I just wanted to add to that point.
Yeah. And I think there was a question in the chat. Right now, this is just AWS, Azure, and GCP. So I wanted to bring this up too. If you have any feedback, right, and you want to join the product team, I'm going to showcase the link one more time here. We've got an NDA advisors community. So you go to that link, and it's an Office Forms, I don't know what to call it, an Office Forms page, and you fill out your info. You'll get vetted and added. And there are weekly calls that happen on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific. So you're part of the process, right? You'll get access to private previews, and that's, something that we really pride ourselves on. Before we release something to public preview, it's gone through initial phases of testing with customers who have agreed to be a part of this NDA community. So for sure, join. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about this click-through demo. So Nick and Guru, both of you had shared this with me because I asked, should we give folks the overview doc? I mean, there's great documentation out there, but both of you said this click-through demo would be a lot more of a better reception. Do you want to talk a little bit about the link that I'm sharing with folks right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So long story with that click-through demo, right? We know a lot of our company, a lot of customers out there have a multi-cloud environment, right? But to be able to use the Entra Permissions Management product, you have to do onboarding. You have to onboard your cloud to the product, and the product does the data collection, and then you can get some accesses to it. Well, if you want an easy way to just see how the product actually operates without doing that onboarding, that's what this click-through demo really does for you. So you can basically get the whole value proposition, or if you just want to just know about what the product does, you could just go through it yourself there.
Nice. Now there is a landing page for documentation. And I know I said I wouldn't show this, but I am going to just show this because I know folks will probably wonder at some point. I've gotten a shortened URL here. So this will take you to kind of our documentation as it stands. It's literally the landing page. So it's all of the overview, the tutorials, all of the different components that make up EPM. So take a look at that if you're also interested and you don't want to go to your search engine of choice and type in Entra Permissions Management. Well, that kind of takes us to the end today. Do either of you have any closing thoughts that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with?
Guru?
Yeah, no, I would just say that, sign up for the 90-day free trial and go come on this journey with us. We would love to, have your input and have you along on this journey. It's going to be really, really fun. And discover Kim and what it entails. And if you guys have any questions, we're here to answer them for you. And this is a brand new category, so don't feel like you're alone. We're all here with you. So that's really my last parting words.
Yeah, and then my last thoughts are, anybody who watches this video, I think you should ask the question: do you have a way to manage permissions today? And if the answer is no, Entra Permissions Management is a product that can help you get that value, and it's a free trial. So it's a no-brainer, to at least to me. Go test it out, go use it. Yeah. You get 90 days of free visibility into your environment, and you can do some right sizing if you'd like, and actually add to your IAM strategy. No-brainer to me.
One thing I wanted to call out too is you can set this up so that if I was the developer and I needed access to something, I could go in here and request it, correct? I just had, so I was playing around with the click-through demo, and I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of a cool reality that I could go in and I could request it. So there's a self-service function as well. It's not just central IT sort of controls it. No, there's a self-service function as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the functionality we like to call permissions on demand.
Right.
This basically helps you get just enough permissions at the time that you would like to gain that access, right? Or have that elevation of permissions to do your job.
Yeah, very cool. Well, listen, thank you both for tuning in or for joining us today. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I messed up the order. So thanks to the folks who are tuning in today. You can always watch this on demand on our 425 Show YouTube channel, right? So that'll show up there later today. Again, the blog post I want to highlight one more time. This is all of the activities we had planned over the months of November, December, and January. The links are all placeholder links in the actual chart. That will be populated starting as early as today, right? So bookmark this blog post, come back to it, reference it often. And we've got a hackathon in January that we're working on planning through right now. So some interesting things coming. thanks to the both of you. Now I am going to be raiding a channel, so bear with me here. Let's go and raid Visual Studio. So I'm going to start the raid right now. And what I will do next is I'll do the outro music and we'll end the stream here. So thanks to everybody. This has been an awesome stream and we're looking forward to some more content over the next couple of months.